Dear friends, a warm welcome from Brussels to this new edition of Talking Europe, where we sit down together with policymakers and high-profile individuals from the Brussels bubble to discuss some of the issues that the EU is working on and how they affect the everyday life of European citizens. Today with us we have the head of cabinet, the chief of staff of one of the most important commissioners, a bit like a minister at the national level, Vice President Mînzatu, whose portfolio covers very much issues around social policy, skills, employment, a crucial portfolio. So her head of cabinet, her chief of staff, Alina Ujupan, is the one who is steering her agenda through the legislative process, who is leading her team in trying to deliver some of the things that the European Union is doing. So Alina, thank you very much for joining us today. We're looking forward to the discussion. You're coming at a crucial moment. The debate around social issues is very much central in the EU's agenda. We saw the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, take the floor on the 10th of September, address Europe about the state of our Union. And central to her message was very much what the EU is doing to provide answers to some of the social and economic challenges EU citizens are facing. The commissioner you work for recently published the Union of Skills, a big initiative to support exactly Europeans in those efforts that they're making. Can you take us through some of the proposals you have made?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Indeed, I think the speech of the President was quite telling about how important the European Commission sees the skills, the people in general. And I would say, we should be the first not to fall into this trap of competitiveness versus social or competitiveness versus people, because even, from basic economics, we know there is no competitiveness without human capital, without people. So people are at the center of what we do. By the same token, when we speak defense, of course, defense and geopolitical order and all these very, very big challenges are there, but at the same time, there is an issue of internal security, which sits with every person being equipped to face everything that we are facing today, including this transformation, the fears that are, every citizen is facing, the transformation of the society, the jobs that are being lost or being created, and all that, it's an issue of security for every person and for the Union as a whole. And I would say when we say security, we also say trust. And it is from this, if you want, this framework that we are approaching our work. The social part of this union, its European social model, comes as what makes Europe attractive, what makes us resilient, but also what makes us also ready for change, because we have the safety nets and we need to take care that they stay there in order for everyone to be safe to go about this transformation of the economy. Now, Union of Skills. Union of Skills was the first, if you want, initiative that we put on the table, 100 days of this college. It was very important to come with it because it is, I would say, for the first time that we have an overarching strategy and an overarching view of putting together the life of a person, from education, early stage to old age, if you want. Yeah, it is about education because with education we bring what is the basic skills of today and we put them on the table and ideally get, I hope, to a political agreement and support of all member states that we go into the same direction. Then it is about future-proofing skills. What are the skills of the future? We need to connect much better education with the labor market, but also with the evolution of the society, because not everything is about a job. And then it is about, as well, getting later in life, having this basis and this openness, but also the resource and the framework to be able to adapt, because our labor market is modernizing, is changing with good, with bad, as everywhere in this world, and we need to make sure we are equipped for what is coming, including new forms of business models. That means new types of jobs. So it is a very overarching, I would say, document. Now, maybe I underline a few things. From there, I start with basic skills. What is very important, we have added a fifth basic skill called citizenship. Why is that? Because, of course, we see ourselves. Society has changed. The environment has changed. We don't live anymore just in physical life. We live a lot in the online world. Online world comes with different flows, different systems. There are no borders. It is very difficult to have borders, to have, I wouldn't say control, but protection of those most vulnerable. So, of course, we need to teach this skill in school. Citizenship means critical thinking. Citizenship means being equipped to face information. Citizenship means also being active in your future, understanding where you live, what is the system through which your voice can be heard, how can you protect yourself when you feel justice is not done to you, and so on. And these are elements that more and more need to come as basic learning together with maths, literacy, etc. This is the first thing maybe I would like to underline. The second thing I would like to underline, maybe moving more towards the labor market. We have sectors that are growing very much. Yeah, take defense. Everyone invests in defense. It's an issue of, nobody wants to go to war, but it's an issue of making sure that we reduce dependencies in general of Europe to other parts of the world, and of making sure we have our capabilities here. Ideally never to use them, but it's important to have them. This means new jobs. This means innovation. This means skills. This means STEM, mechanics. We speak also of that, of course, vocational and educational training. At the same time, you have sectors that are undergoing very quick transformation, especially the energy-intensive sectors, where some jobs may be lost, others created, but some will be lost. And there is an issue of us getting a new strategy, if you want, at European level, where we can act across the chain. How do we move and use the competence we have today, for example, broadly in automotive sectors, into other mechanically based sectors that are creating jobs? And for this, we came with a scheme which we will pilot next year called the Skills Guarantee. And here, there are several ways in which we will engage it. But what we are testing, on the one hand, of course, it's for the worker to have the opportunity, and we would, let's say, pay partly for this to get trained into a new skill or have his or her skills adapted. But it's also about encouraging the employers in the growing sectors to hire from the sectors that are shrinking or from types of jobs that are shrinking. So we make sure we use all the skills we have in Europe. I would underline these two things maybe from the Union of Skills, but I'm happy to discuss further if you want.
No, this is extremely interesting because we have seen that our fellow citizens are facing difficulties. Like you said, the digital transition and the green transition is generating a lot of anxiety among workers who perhaps fear that their job will be lost, or who realize that they might have to retrain. So I think the measures that you outlined go some way to address some of those concerns, both in terms of the skills necessary to adapt to this multifaceted transition, but also the protections we need to offer to our fellow citizens, because that fear and that anxiety has been exploited by extreme political forces, both on the extreme right, but sometimes even on the extreme left, where they're trying to really scare people and take advantage of the insecurity that they might feel. Do you think that the work that the Commission is doing can address some of that anxiety, and perhaps including the civic education that you have included in the Union of Skills, go some way in defending our democracy as well?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That is also the idea. Obviously, schools, universities are pillars of democracy in Europe. Why? Because it is through these institutions that we teach the EU values and we teach who we are. And I don't think we should neglect, on the contrary, if it's something Brussels can do better, is listen to the people and the fears that are out there. I think they are legitimate. And of course, to make sure we come with the right solution that gives ownership also to the people on the ground. And that's why also, I mean, the Executive Vice President has been traveling to a lot of member states to really meet people on the ground, social partners, companies, workers, students, teachers, to discuss all these elements. I think it's a well-invested time to also understand the situation on the ground, because we cannot come with a magical solution from here without being close to our citizens. And they are in a delicate situation. Of course, when you hear this trade agreement is done, what happens to my job? Somebody says, I don't know if I'll protect Europe again. I mean, there are things that are out there and legitimate concerns, and what we have tried to do, and I think the president also has managed very well now when she came out also with her State of the Union speech, is, you know, bring back this unity that actually makes us strong. We should not forget that is exactly this discourse of fear, of division, of, you know, differentiation, but not in a positive way, that actually weakens Europe. You know, divide et impera, it's a very old saying from the Roman time and is valid also today. And I think the first weapon we have is, you know, it's a soft one. It's education, it's our values, and it is something that both children, parents, and adults in general need to share. There is also another initiative that is coming, and we are also supporting it, is under the lead of another colleague of the Executive Vice President, Mr. McGrath, and Mrs. Virkkunen, is the European Democracy Shield, where, of course, obviously there as well, education will have a strong component. And we also need to look at, you know, source, cause, effect, so the whole chain of how we get there into our democracy being threatened. There is also work, and you announce, I mean, it was announced as well, there will be a platform where we will bring parents together to see also with social platforms how we will act in the future and how we can, you know, make sure there is sort of an age suitability to being exposed and invaded to all sorts of information. But to come back also in the world of work, of course, we spoke a lot of education, but I think the sense of security and trust and reassurance comes also through what we do on the labor market. And we are working, and it will be this autumn, following a very, very, very broad consultation. We will put together a quality jobs roadmap. We also had the Porto Summit, where there were some discussions also with stakeholders, and the president has also announced the Quality Jobs Act that will be coming in the future. It is very important, I think. You know, there is this how should I say, conflict that we hear sometimes. We need to save companies now because they are into, you know, a lot of pressure, and they are. And I think we need to be fair to that, given the whole economic context. We need to speak productivity. We need to speak innovation. We need to speak about technology, no doubt about that. And the issue is, you know, how do we square into this the issue of quality jobs? We have studies who demonstrate that a quality job leads to increased productivity. There are important elements, such as having a decent wage, because in-work poverty leads to that kind of frustration. There are issues about how we handle digitalization. There is a lot of opportunity in digitalization, and we should use it because others use it, and then we lose a lot of ground. And it can help people, but it has to stay human-centric. It has to be in the advantage of everybody, not in the detriment of the worker being supervised as in a Big Brother show. And also we have to have a certain hygiene of work-life balance that in the end takes care of our mental health. Because if we don't take care of that, we will experience a lot of costs on the health system because many people will become in the end, victims of all that addiction and lack of limits. So all this will be issues that we will look into with this quality jobs package in order to make sure that we take into account modernization, but in a way that is coherent with the European social model.
That's extremely interesting because it goes at the heart of the challenges we just discussed. I think both in terms of securing quality jobs, but also addressing the rising cost of living that we experience, including the cost of housing, of course. And that's something that I think it's important for the EU to underline. Now, if I may touch on something you mentioned, you brought up the question of trade deals. And the EU is built upon the idea of multilateralism, of open trade. We have a common market that enables us to trade with each other without any impediment. And we have been pursuing such agreements with nations from around the globe. including the US, of course, which now has an administration that perhaps is not so positively predisposed towards multilateralism and open trade. How is the EU responding to this attitude from the current occupant of the White House, and whether there is a risk that perhaps our social standards are seen as non-tariff barriers for American products? Are we able to resist perhaps pressure from the US to water down our standards in the context of trade agreements?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think it's indeed a very good one and a very realistic one today. Obviously, we see the world is changing. Yeah, we are moving from an ideology that we were used to, and I think there was a convergence at the level of, let's say, the big powers of the world, into a shifting situation where certain values are put into question. Again, of course, it's an issue of chicken and the egg and very philosophical. How did we get there? But I think what is important, and again, what this commission has been trying to do, is indeed to make sure we stay resilient and faithful to what we are. Someone was saying at some point, you know, I don't want to make Europe more like US or more like China. I want Europe to stay more like her. And I think, you know, this is what should drive us. There are still, and what is our barometer in the end, is still we see a lot of people in this planet wanting to come and live in Europe. And this is what should guide us and tell us we are on the right track. As long as we see that, Europe is a desired place. It means we do the right thing. Now, of course, there is an increased pressure on our values. There is an increased pressure also because there are a lot of, I would say, economic supply chains that are rearranging, and we need to see our role in that, and that's exactly what we have tried to do. That's why the diversification of the trade agreements, you've seen there's been recently, I think today, yesterday, the trade deal with Indonesia that was signed, the college that traveled to India. There is a lot of this world, except of course the US, which is and remains our traded partner. Of course, there is a new administration with a new agenda. And there we have to be careful that the position that we take, of course, maintains protection to Europe, and also, I would say, open doors to where we can collaborate. And it is a balance that continues to be, I would say, stricken. Now, I think it would be wrong, because a lot of European prosperity has been actually built on trade. It would be wrong now to close borders, and also because not everything can be sourced in Europe. As not everything can be sourced, I would say, in most of the countries of the world. We need to trade, but we need to trade, of course, with certain principles of reciprocity, and especially with taking care of our values. You've seen, you know, Europe stands by what it is. We want our companies to stay here. I think there is a difference, and it's a fine difference to make between what means. And I think here we need to pay attention, and it's a work to do together. What means modernization and, you know, being part of what is the state of the world and in a way relevant and valid on the global scene, and what means pressure because of this or that threat that we would experience. Again, modernization needs to happen. Nobody, I think, succeeded in the course of history opposing progress and change. What you need is to embrace it and be able to adapt. And it's difficult sometimes, and it's difficult for us, but I would say much more difficult to people in everyday life, and us as citizens in everyday life. So I think the key there is for us to take that element into account in the policies that we design. And what is also essential, and I haven't spoken about, is the unity of the European Union. That everyone, Commission, but also member states, stand by what we say and what we do and speak with one voice. I come back to that divide et impera, which is very important to avoid.
Yeah, especially right now, when there are indeed forces from within and outside trying to pull us apart. And perhaps that's why we need to be more ambitious, even audacious in our approach. We are involved in a project that brings together academics, but also policy experts, to reimagine perhaps the social contract, yes, and see whether we need to redesign it and redraft it for the new age we are in. And our ambition is to take stock of where our fellow citizens are, how is our society changing, and whether we need to redraft and reconsider the social contract we have put in place here in Europe. Do you think we need to explore these kind of changes? Does the social contract, as we understand it, serve its purpose? Is it time for something new, perhaps?
I think change is always a constant. Yeah, so even what is social contract has to take into account the changes that we have. I mean, take the fact that, again, I said in the past, everything that we had was perceived in a physical reality. Now, you have a digital dimension that impacts on, you cannot necessarily reproduce the same type of, balances, right? So I think wisest is indeed to have that discussion. I think it's very good. You do it, we do it, you share with us what you discover. And in any case, I think it has to be a collective, embraced, learned change. It cannot be imposed, neither from Brussels elsewhere, nor are we the wisest person on earth. And also, it cannot be left either just astray, into a total, 100 different systems that then could lead also to disturbances. So we need a certain equilibrium and a certain understanding. I'm confident we will get there. I think if we speak to I come from communist Romania, I've experienced the revolution. If I think of my parents' generation, maybe not my age, but younger, and what their life perspective was, and understanding of, the universe they had in a limited country where they couldn't even go abroad and understand what that is, with a single TV channel 3 hours a day, and where we are now, and is my parents still experiencing where we are now, the world can change immensely. And I think we have the resource to continue on our path if we stay true to our values.
Indeed. And you mentioned the need for unity, yes, and how we need to achieve that between the institutions, between member states, but also across society. Our organization, the European Movement, was set up to advocate for that kind of unity and pull together all sides of society. At the moment, we are the platform that brings together social partners, NGOs, local authorities, political parties. How do you see the role of civil society and citizens in forging that unity, and how much can we involve them in policy making, perhaps?
Very important. Very important. I think civil society is part of democracy for me. Is part of, bottom-up initiatives, personality of our citizens, personality of our change. It's the soul of the change on the ground. And I think, obviously this is something, and this is a value that, and a structure that we have cultivated in Europe and at European level, exactly because of that. It's diversity, it's bottom-up change, is owned, changed, and personality of who we are. And this is what makes us European. So I cannot but say that I think it's even more pressure on you to, get even more into this change. It's a challenge that I think we all face, and we look forward to also listen to what you see on the ground and the directions you see and the sensitivities you see that we need to act upon. But I think we have a partnership there of the right values and checks and balances for our democracy.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great way perhaps to conclude the conversation and to renew that desire to work together. Alina, it was a pleasure to talk to you today for Talking Europe, and we look forward to working more in the future.
The pleasure was absolutely mine, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dear friends, thank you for watching us. We will be in touch with the next issue very soon.